kind of raider are you? Are you the type of raider that steps into an encounter with the hopes that it's going to be an easy fight with a big reward? Or are you the raider that your team depends on? The one that has the answers and ideas on how to make sure that your team gets that kill? If you're already that raider, well, welcome home. If you want to be that person, you have come to the right place. It's time to sit down with the Raid Mechanics.
Hello and welcome to BlizzPro TV's The Raid Mechanics, the show where we give you the tips, tricks, and strats that will help you get your next boss kill. This week, we're going to be going over the Kor'kron Dark Shaman encounter in Siege of Orgrimmar Normal, as well as going over part 1 of our 4-part segment that we're going to be doing on log analysis, and this week we're going to be covering how to take a look at healer logs and how to go over healer parses. So, bringing in first with our mechanics this week, we have Matticus. How's it going, Matt?
Trying to mechanically fix my hair from not sticking up. I guess on the wild front, so we extended our lockout this week, and it paid off. We killed heroic Kor'kron, so we are now 9 out of 14.
Oh, nice.
Yep. The next boss now is spoils. So that's been going kind of sluggish. It's a balancing act, but
that's a fight with a lot going on, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of balancing, especially on a 25-man level. There's a lot of people that have to be coordinated and all that. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah, real estate becomes a real issue in that, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Just because the room is so small.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
There's really more people, and there's more stuff going off, so... But,
that other voice you heard there was Dagum. How's it going, Dagum?
Oh, not too bad. This week I actually remembered to unmute my mic before I started talking. So
Good call. Making progress.
Progression.
Hey, 1 week at a time, right? That's how we take it.
Progression.
So how are you guys doing right now in Raid, Dagum?
Well, this week we got Mercius down again, and it took a little longer because last week we had some fill-ins. So we had to teach the few people that weren't there last week kind of the strat and things like that. And then we went to Norshan again, and I think our closest was 6% or so. But it went pretty well overall. It was a good week.
Alright, and I'm, of course, Lucian. I'm your primary host. This past week has been a little bit rough for me in raiding. My 10-man got hung up again on General Nazgrim and Heroic. We just can't seem to get a clean attempt all the way down to 10%. We always seem to lose somewhere around that 25% mark, and it makes it really difficult to push over, especially when it's a healer or a tank that you lose at that point. And then for my 25-man, after we got Siegecrafter Blackfuse on Heroic down last week, we have had nothing but problems getting a repeat kill on him this week, so it's the curse of the second kill, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. I find that the sophomore kill on a new boss is always the hardest one.
Yeah, especially when it's like that, where the smallest mistake will cause the group to wipe. So
exactly.
Alright, so that's pretty much it for a week. So have you guys seen the big news? Unless you've been living under a rock,
it's me living under a rock.
Yeah, I got my head buried in the sand. So
seriously? Oh, I'm disappointed, guys.
What news are we talking about here?
I mean, there's news everywhere. So
I know you got to help me out here. Like, is it the Olympics? Yeah, I mean, the fifth ring opening.
Sochi, Russia is killing World of Warcraft.
I mean, hockey's coming up, right?
I know exactly what it is.
What is it?
So many people are disappointed with the Olympics. They're coming back to playing World of Warcraft, and World of Warcraft is back up to 7.8 subs, 7.8 million.
That's not bad. I think it's dying though. I think.
Oh yeah. The subscriptions went up by 200,000, and you think it's dying?
Yeah.
Yes, clearly, obviously.
7.8.
End of the world, man.
I guess that's dying. Yeah, to be fair, it was 12 million at one point.
Right.
It's leveling off though.
Yeah,
I
this is
mean,
kind of what I expected, right? I mean,
you could say that it's dying, but it's pretty damn alive still. 7.8 million is
yeah,
a lot of people.
yeah. This is kind of what I expected. Like when people were talking about how World of Warcraft was dying like a year ago or 2 years ago, whenever they released the one that was the huge drop.
Yeah,
Remember?
1.3 million at the start of last year's quarter.
Yep. Yep. I had been playing Mists for long enough to know that this is a good expansion, that the raids were really, really solid, and that I was really enjoying the content. So, yeah, I mean, this isn't really any surprise to anyone that had been playing Mist, I feel like.
Yeah, so
I mean, what do you guys think? Surprised, not surprised?
not surprised at all. It was
Yeah.
going to balance out eventually. It was
Yep.
just a matter of where it went
looks-
to before it started to balance out.
This game fluctuates a lot. So like the subscribers, there's always people that come and go. Like they leave for a little bit and they come back, and so it's always not really a constant. It fluctuates. That's just the nature of a subscription-based game.
All right. Well, since I don't want to beat a dead horse, because quite frankly, I think this topic is going to be covered by about 1,500 other WoW-based shows and whatnot. Let's step right into our encounter this week. Now, the encounter we're covering this week is the Kor'kron Dark Shaman encounter in 10-man and 25-man normal. Now, this is a 2 to 3 tank boss. Now, we'll go into why in just a minute. But outside of your 2 to 3 tanks, you can bring 2 to 3 healers and as well as mixed DPS. Now, I say mixed DPS because you do need some ranged DPS on this fight. You can't just bring in pure melee, but you can technically bring in pure ranged. Well, if you brought in pure melee, you would just be having to, floor heal it. But,
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, you could, but
so, Maticus, you're probably the most familiar out of the
Yep.
group, being the 25-man raid lead on this one. Do you want to explain the 3-tank method?
so the 3 tank strategy. Okay, let's just go over it really quickly. So there's these 2 shamans. They have shared health, and they each have their own set of abilities based on what their health percentage is at. We'll go over that in a little bit later on, but just mechanically speaking, with 2 tanks, you'd have to switch them back and forth. Obviously, they have to taunt off each other because one of them, I believe it's the Earth Fury guy, has a Wind Fury stack or something that he puts on, a debuff that he puts on whoever his target is. And obviously, the tanks have to switch back and forth to kind of minimize that. But the abilities, as you progress in the fight over time, the abilities can become overwhelming, especially to a group that's just starting to learn and get accustomed to it. So if you really want to make things easier for yourself, one of the accepted strategies is to split both shamans apart. You can bring one, you keep one in the centralized area where the Orgrimmar, like the Orgrimmar Town Square or whatever, I don't know what it's called, like that, just a big giant thing.
Wait, you're Alliance,
Area,
aren't you?
open area. I don't know. I'm Alliance. I don't know what you guys.
You're talking about Grommash Hold, the area in front of Grommash
Yeah.
Hold.
Right, yeah, that thing, that place. And then you can take one of the other guys up the ramp towards the next area where it's closed off. So that's kind of what we do. Again, I'm really bad with names, so I'm going to say we keep the tornado spinning guy on the bottom part, and we take the guy who spits out these green pools up to the top.
Yeah, so what he's
And
saying is you take Harum
Right,
up to
so-
the top, who's the one that
Exactly.
spits out the pools and has the tank debuff. And
Right.
the one that puts out the ads is Cardis, and you keep her down on the bottom.
And you use 1 tank for that one, while you use 2 tanks for the Earth Fury dude.
Now, how many healers do you send up top? Because I've seen a lot
Okay.
of discussion on healers
Yes.
on this fight.
Yes, you can. Okay, so healers, if you are learning, I would strongly suggest taking 6 to 7 just to keep as many people alive while you learn the different things until people become better at it. As you get better, you can probably drop it down to even 5. Now, if you're going to split it, I find that the bottom, the group that's on the bottom, there's a lot more avoidable spells and abilities, so you don't have to have as many healers there. You can probably put two down there, and then you can bring 3 for Earth Dude. God, I'm so bad with names.
Harem.
Right, harem. Yeah.
All right,
And
so
that's kind of what we do. I'm not sure what the formation would be on 10 man. Can you solo heal one of those or no?
yeah, so essentially the way you want to do it on 10 man is if you are going to separate the tanks, having one tank up top or two tanks up top and one down bottom, is you'll actually probably, if you're just learning this fight, want to put two healers up top and one healer down bottom.
Yeah. So okay, so same kind of
Yeah.
proportion. Yes. Yeah.
Now, as you get, sorry, Daggum just edited the show notes.
Oh, that's good. Those are good. That's
Yeah.
really helpful.
Harem, the Earth dude, Cardis,
Yeah.
the other dude.
Yeah. Well, that's good. We should do this more often.
I'm just helping. That's all.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Appreciate it.
All right, so yeah, for the healers on that for the 10 man, yeah, you can probably solo heal up top, assuming that you are reasonably geared and are fairly comfortable with the fight. But as you're learning it, you probably do want to have a single or have two healers up top and one down bottom. Now let's really quickly just go over some of the abilities on this because I think some of them are fairly important that we do touch on for people that aren't as familiar with them. So, Daggum, why don't you take Cardis' abilities?
All right. So with Cardis, you're going to have Falling Ash, which is going to be... Yeah, right. It's a giant red circle on the ground. You pretty much can't miss it.
You would think so.
Yeah,
It's possible to miss it.
I guess. I will just trust you guys that I don't know how you could miss it, but if you stand in it, you're going to die. It's a meteor that will slowly drop. You have a long time before it actually lands, so you have plenty of time to get out of it. Just stay out of it. If you're in it, I'm pretty sure it's a one-shot, right? Even on
Yeah,
normal?
I think it hits for like
really-
5 million or something like that.
It's
Yeah,
pretty
okay.
damn-
If you're outside of it, you'll still take damage, but you won't take near as much. So there is some raid-wide damage that happens then. Also, Foul Geyser, which spawns adds for about 8 seconds near her current target. We'll talk about that a little more in depth later, but try and keep those adds grouped up so that you can AoE them down. Toxic Storm, which is little tornadoes. The trickiest thing with these is they can actually clip into the side of the hill. So it gets really hard to see sometimes. And if you walk into it, you'll actually take damage. Plus, the tornadoes that spawn deal damage too.
Yeah, those tornadoes are annoying because they also knock you up.
Yep. And you take a ton of damage if you get knocked up by them.
Yeah.
And then Froststorm Bolt, and that can be spell reflected as well as Dark Simulacrum. I don't know. The thing that reflects spells back at people.
Yeah.
That thing.
It's DK's ability that Dark Simulacrum pulls.
Yeah, you copy an
spells
ability
from-
and you send it back. Yeah, I know.
I didn't know about that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, I think shamans can use their totem too. That spell reflects it with the glyph of spell reflection on their totem. I can't remember what the totem's called. I play a shaman. I should know
Is that Grounding Totem?
Yes, thank you. For some reason, I was thinking capacitor. All right, so Maticus, why don't you take the Earth guy's abilities? I mean,
The
Harem.
Earth guy, the Earth dude. All right, so
Yeah.
Earth dude, he has the tank swap ability as a result of his Frost Storm Strike. I thought it was Wind Fury, but I guess it's actually the Storm Strike thing. You want to switch at about 4 to 6 stacks, unless you are an awesome tank, in which case you can probably go a little higher than that. But you know, this is where you do a little bit of trial and error here. The next one is Toxic Mists. Leaves a little dot. It just gets longer and longer over the duration. So, Foul Stream. He spits out he'll target somebody and then he'll spit out a giant stream of green sludge in their direction. Just move. There's a giant green like column or beacon, and it's really obvious as to who will have it. And just move out of the way of that. The last one.
Just real quick, I just want to say,
What's
as
up?
melee, be really careful with that because
Yeah.
the cone for it is really wide.
Yes, it is. I normally play range and the healer when I do this, so I don't. It's harder for me to see it in melee, but I imagine it's pretty dangerous, right? So.
Yep.
And the last one is the Ashen Wall. It's a giant wall of earth elementals Um, Try to not get in contact with them because they'll kill you pretty fast if you're within melee range. There's a couple tricks for this that we'll get to about placement of the walls, so we'll touch on that in a moment here. But that's essentially Harem's abilities.
Yeah, now something to keep in mind with the Ashen Wall is that if you do have to move through it, for the love of God, for the sake of your healers, use a defensive cooldown.
Yep.
Because they will just obliterate you.
Now you can parry those strikes too, right? Those are actually
yeah,
melee
because they're
strikes.
actually melee strikes, so yes, you can parry them.
I mean, so you can blow deterrents and like run through it and you'll take no damage.
Yep.
Good.
Deterrents,
I
evasion.
had the pain suppression my way through it, so
Yeah.
Yep.
I know bubbles work. Mages can blink through it without taking any damage. I think hunters
you're
can
a
actually deter or disengage over top of it.
hunters can do that. Yep.
So
Every class has a thing they can use to sneak around them if they have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's any classes that just don't have any ability to get around them, and I think Shamans may be the only one.
Yep.
Shamans may be priests, but priests can just bubble and run through it. So
Yeah, dispersion. I mean, if you're shadow,
yeah,
so
Yeah. Dispersion, pain suppression, guardian angel, whatever, you know.
So
Yep.
what we're ultimately saying is that there's absolutely
Or-
no reason that you should die to this mechanic.
unless you're a shaman.
Unless you're a
In which
shaman.
case-
Then you have all the reason in the world.
The
Sorry.
priest can life grip the shaman through them too, you know.
Life grip does actually still take melee hits because you
they'll
are
still
traveling
hit.
through it.
Yep.
Oh,
They'll
you're
still take
screwed.
damage.
Sorry, you're out
The
of
only-
luck.
You can blow like some defensive cooldown. You'll take one hit. So like if you have what astral plane or whatever the
Astral shift.
talent is,
Astral
shift. That's
shift
it.
or yeah. So sorry, shamans. Your shaman
you're out of
buddies
luck.
are going to try to kill you on this.
You're shaman out of luck.
Yes.
Boom-ts.
All right, so let's really quickly go into our tips and tricks for this fight. Since I think the healer one's probably going to be the easiest to cover on this one and the quickest, Medicus, why don't you start us off with that?
Okay, all right. So a lot of this is going to hinge on positioning and placement. You got to be really good with this. So if you're on, I'll try to split this up based on position. We haven't really covered the two tank approach, so that one's a little bit more obvious. Okay, let's do that first. If you only have two tanks and you're forced to keep both Harem and Cardis on the bottom area, your job is to basically heal as much as you can. There's nothing tricky about this at all. So you're going to be constantly moving around the room, trying to place tornadoes, trying to dodge slimes, trying to dodge walls, that sort of thing. So mobility is going to be a big thing for you here. Try to stay with your group as much as possible. You want to centralize those toxic storms and try to keep them contained in one area. Stay away from the ads too, because the ads have like a little aura that does damage to things around them. So definitely want to stay at range from those. And your jobs are basically to keep the tanks alive, no duh, and the rest of your team alive. That's the cooldowns that you want to use here. Generally are for the meteor. Even though you're not standing in it, I find that even if you're standing like outside the red circle, you're still going to take incidental damage from impact no matter what. So make sure people are reasonably healed up through it. If not, burn a preemptive cooldown right away. Some kind of a totem or a barrier might even work. A barrier may not be able to catch everyone, which is the problem, but at least it's something.
Yeah, I find barrier and spirit link totem to be fairly ineffective on this fight.
It's very limited on this fight because there's just so much room and not everyone's like stacked up, right? They can't really take advantage of those of those skills. So
now on that note, devotion aura on the meteor or on falling ash is instantly just reduces it by 40% and makes it so essentially your group's health pool won't even
They won't
make a
even
drop.
move, right?
It won't be a drop in the
Yep.
bucket essentially.
Rallying Cry can also provide a nice buffer too.
Yeah.
Not only that, but like even paladins themselves, you may want to make sure that you don't have divine protection glyphed for this, because even as a tank, I think the melee damage isn't real high. I think it's still a lot of elemental damage, right?
I think about
So
90% of the damage on here is elementals. So
right. So and alternatively, other tanks may want to look at if you're uncomfortable with how much magic reduction. So that, I mean, I know we're talking about like cooldowns and things like that, and even non-tanking cooldowns, but that's part of healing, guys. Like if you can reduce the damage before it happens, you're helping out the healers.
Yep, exactly. So, and this is for the two tank approach. If you're rocking the three tanks where you're splitting both shamans, you're going to have to split your healers. If you have 3 and 3, that's great. If not, I would go heavier on the top side personally. Well,
With
I guess it
Haram.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely want to be heavier on the top side.
Yeah. Because the group that's on Cardis, a lot of that damage is avoidable. Just don't stand in the tornadoes, avoid the ads, that sort of thing, in your set. But the healers up high on Haram might have a little bit more of a tougher job there. So, and that one, however, if you have a barrier or a totem, that one actually works out pretty well up top, though.
Yeah, because everyone's reasonably close together.
Exactly.
Definitely
And
does
so,
work.
and you typically are going to want to send all your melee against Harem and stick most of all your ranged on Cardis instead. Yeah.
Yeah, now just for an idea of the kind of healing requirement on this fight, if you are separating the tanks for top and bottom, my 25 men, when we do this on heroic, we send 1 healer down bottom, which is a discipline priest, and 4 healers up top. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much healing difference there is.
We actually use 4 and 2, or sometimes 4 and 1, or 3 and 2, depending on who we have, right? So it really varies. As long as you're heavier on the top side, your group should be in good shape for it.
Yeah. All right, so that essentially just covers healers. Like Matt said, just kind of using your cooldowns properly for the Falling Ash is the only big thing that you need to keep in mind. So, Dag, I want you start us off with the DPS strategy.
Okay, the DPS strategy is don't die, because everything in this fight is a death trap for you, and I mean everything. And I'm saying that from a melee perspective, but as I understand it, the ranged isn't much different.
Yeah.
One of the bigger differences for melee I know is don't walk up to the slimes because they hurt. And watch out for like the foul stream. That's going to be really dangerous for melee. I mentioned that earlier. Overall, though, I mean, you're trying to cleave as much as you can because they have shared health pools. So if you can damage both of them at the same time, even if it reduces your damage by like 20%, if it's 20% less optimal to, say, throw dots on both guys than to just do your single target rotation, you're doing more damage overall. So, because with that shared health pool, you're just trying to get as much of that down as possible, as fast as possible. One thing to keep in mind is the bloodlust for this is not, and it's always bloodlust, Matt. It's never heroism. There is no such thing as heroism. I just want you to know that. The bloodlust for this is going to be, is it 30% that they, I believe, yes?
25 that they use their bloodlust.
Is it 25? Okay. So 25%, the shamans actually bloodlust themselves. So what you want to do is you want to time your bloodlust with theirs so that you can burn them down in that last 25%. Because they're going to not only get haste, they're also getting damage because their bloodlust is better than ours. Sad. But, yeah, as far as the DPS strategy here, you're going to want to corral the slimes. You're going to want to have your ranged burn them down. As melee, I have, on occasion, walked near them, pressed Divine Storm, and then ran away right away, just to kind of help out a little. But if I do that, I always make sure one of two things. And if you're not comfortable doing this, don't do it. First, I make sure I don't have the debuff that is placed on me, which is called
Toxic Mist.
Toxic Mist, thank you. If you have the debuff on you, you will die instantly because you take increased nature damage. That's the other thing to be mindful of. If you have that debuff on you and you get hit by Foul Stream, you will die instantly. It will murder you. So blow any cooldown you can if you're going to get hit by that. Some sort of immunity, ice block, dispersion, whatever. Something that's going to take like 70 or more % damage away, because you will die to that. But like I said, we mentioned earlier, Ashen Wall, the ways to get around that. Just walk around it. Even if you lose a little DPS, walk around things. Don't walk through them. Walk around them. Take as little damage as possible. Help your healers out. Staying alive is key on this. That's pretty much all I have to, because I think I'm kind of hitting the same points here. Do you guys have any little additions that you wanted to add?
For DPS, but really, this fight's all about personal responsibility for the DPS, really.
Yep.
It's knowing how to avoid the incoming damage that you can avoid.
I never found it to be a DPS check overall.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's just a straight survivability check. So you can just practice, take as long as you need to get through all the different mechanics and all that, right? So.
Yeah.
Now, something that Dagum did mention is the lusting at the 25% mark. Now, there is some argument as to using... Okay, fine, Time Warp. Just using Time Warp at the start of the fight. But what happens when you Time Warp at the start of the fight is that because you're pushing through so much of their health pool so quickly, you're going to have a big chunk of their abilities all line up really close together because they gain their abilities at certain percentages of their health.
Yep.
So I think the cooldown's independent of each other, right?
Yes.
Their abilities.
Yep. Yeah. Their cooldowns are like follow each other. They won't use multiple things at once. So.
One thing I didn't mention is there's either 2 or 4 dogs, depending on whether you're in 10 or 25 man.
No,
I believe
there's only 2 dogs.
Is it only 2? Okay.
2 dogs all the time.
So there's 2 dogs at the beginning with the 2 bosses. You're going to want to burn the dogs down as fast as possible because I believe they put a stacking rend on the tanks, which is a bleed.
Which absolutely sucks. Yes, they do.
And they take a lot of damage from that. So you want to burn them down as quickly as you possibly can.
Oddly enough, that's a good time to use a cooldown right away if you really wanted to.
Okay.
Alright, now... So we've kind of primarily been focused on the 3-tank method on this. But for my tank strategy, it's primarily going to be focused on how to 2-tank this. Because 3-tanking this is really simple. You send 2 tanks up top. 1 tank has the harm at any given point, and you just tank swap, and you turn around, you drop your Ashen Wall, and you run back. Whereas the other tank the 3rd tank is down bottom, and all he's doing is running out for Foul Stream, I think, or no, Foul Geyser with the ads. He's just running out, spawning the ads, and running back in. It's not a very complicated fight when you are 3-tanking it. But when you're 2-tanking it, suddenly... Now you have to do your tank swaps while you're dealing with all these other mechanics, as well as dropping the wall in effective spots so that you're not completely cutting off your room and cutting off the area, as well as making sure the ads are spawning in appropriate areas. So as a 2-tank method, generally what you're going to want to do is right off the bat on the pole you're going to have one tank take Harem, the other tank take Cardis. And right off the bat, I would have the tank that is tanking Cardis take both dogs until the dogs are dead. Now, the reason why this is that because Harem's putting a stacking debuff on the tank, you don't want that stacking debuff as well as a rend debuff going up, or else that tank is just going to start getting absolutely trucked. Outside of that, after that point in the fight, it's just kind of positioning yourself so that you can drop your Ashen Wall as close to one of the surrounding walls in the area. So, for instance, putting it up against the auction house, or putting it up against the side of the bank, to kind of keep the walls kind of cut off from the rest of the map, so that your DPS in your range have the open areas. For other abilities that you do need to keep in mind, I think Foul Geyser, the ads, is the only other thing that really is important for tanks. Yeah, that's about the only really important other ability they use. So, spawning the ads effectively, this can be somewhat difficult, and it's kind of tricky to learn how to do. There is a bit of a delay from the time where they actually start using Follow Geyser to where it actually starts to spawn the ads. So what you want to do is, what I've found effective is running in and around, say, the cages or something like that, and using those to kind of slow down the ads because they now have to move around the cages. Using the areas that are kind of in between the bank or the auction house and the inn. Using the area that's kind of in between the bank and the forge. Using those areas to kind of slow down the ads. It's all really effective. You just want to kind of keep something in the ad's path to kind of keep them grouped up and together. That way they'll have to kind of bottleneck to get to your DPS. As a bear druid on this fight, or actually as any druid on this fight, you're definitely going to want to take Ursul's Vortex to help control those ads, as well as Typhoon. It's just too strong of an ability. Death Knights are going to want to take Gorfine's Grasp to group up those ads, and outside of that...
Thunderstorm!
Yeah, Thunderstorm could be pretty good. You just need to make sure you aren't right in the middle of it, because you can actually spread the ads out.
Yeah.
So take anything that's going to help your group get those ads closer together, essentially, is what I'm saying. Can you guys think of anything else really for tanks that's
Yeah, I actually had a question for you. So I've done the tanking a couple times on Flex, on my Paladin.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of not confused, but I'm still having difficulty positioning the walls.
Okay. Now, the ways the walls get placed is they always get placed directly off the front of your character. So,
okay, so
essentially,
they're going perpendicular to where I'm facing.
Yeah, so they make a 90-degree with the direction that your character is facing.
Okay.
So when you're placing the walls, you want to make sure that you are literally facing into where you want the wall to go across.
So in this case, I want it parallel with like the walls or the doors, or
yeah. So you face in towards the doors. You face in towards the walls.
Okay.
Yeah, put your back to the wall.
But no, you put your face to the wall, because if you put your back to the wall, you then have to move through it.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, I usually blow a cooldown when because I tank it too, here and there. When I take it, I just blow a cooldown when that comes up and walk right through the wall.
And then you also want to time it in such a way that you're not taunting just before a wall spawns, right? You want to let the other tank place it first.
Now that's another thing is when you are doing the tank swap on this, definitely try and make sure you do the tank swap in between abilities. So you don't want to do a tank swap like during a wall being spawned or during ads being spawned.
This is such like
your DPS.
This is such a cooldown laden fight. Like you really have to watch those timers for everything.
Yeah.
Just to know when everything's up.
Yep. One thing I wanted to mention, and this is more of like a tips or trick. So I know we're covering that here in a second, but it's kind of tank related because it's the pull, right? Yeah. So a lot of people initially with the pull will try and reset them the first time so that they come out, so that the pull's not so tricky.
I don't know why they don't just start them there.
I don't either, but
they do that with a couple bosses in this instance.
They could have cut one trash pack and just started them there, and then everybody would have been happy because there's less trash. And the bosses are already in their position that's alive. But there's a couple of tricks to reset it. And the obvious ones are like Mage Invisibility, Rogue Vanish, Hunter Feign Death, right? Those are the ones that are pretty universal. One that people may not know of that I do on my Paladin is the Crashin' Thrashin' Racer controller.
Oh,
which
really?
Which is actually an item that you got a few years ago at the Christmas event. Which, if you walk into not the big room where they are, but the room right before it, if you walk into it, you use the Crashin' Thrashin' Racer controller, and then you just kind of walk it right up to them. They'll despawn immediately and respawn outside. It's amazing. It works. It's something I learned a long time ago when I used to tank Lich King Heroics, and I would reset. You guys. I don't know if you guys remember this Lich King dungeon where there was a spider down at the bottom, and you had to kind of wait for it to come up and web the.
Oh yeah, oh jeez, what's that dungeon?
Ankahed or something like that, or It's the same dungeon with an Uberak, but. You guys know what I'm talking about. You could actually reset that, run down to where the boss would spawn, and just nuke the boss down real fast. And so I used to speed run these dungeons when I was tanking, and it's something I found out then. You can still do it now. So it's a great tool to reset encounters. If you have that item, carry it with you and use it.
That's
Yeah, it was
interesting.
on my bags now.
I wouldn't even think to use something like that to reset a boss. That's what rogues are for.
Right, right.
They have to be good for something,
Some
right?
job security.
All right, so outside of that, do you guys have any tips and tricks for dealing with this boss?
What else do we? I don't think so. We covered just about everything I can think of. If you're learning it, I would say have your raid leader, or just have someone call out each individual ability timer until the whole group gets accustomed to it.
Yeah, it gets a feel for the
Right. Exactly.
timers.
Yeah, and then they'll eventually kind of get a handle of it themselves, and you can kind of dial back on the calling and stuff like that.
Particularly one that you need to make sure that you're calling out if you are learning it is the falling ash when it actually hits the ground. Because the falling ash, the damage doesn't actually happen until the meteor hits the ground. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to figure when that's going to happen based on the timers. But DBM has a fairly good audible warning for when that's actually going to hit the ground to, warn your healers that a big damage is coming.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, just be really aware if you're melee. Be really, really aware of your own debuffs and foul stream placement. Because again, that cone is really wide, and if he turns this way and you're standing over here, basically, like if he turns this way and you're on his left or right side, just for the people that aren't visually seeing this, but just hearing it, you can actually get hit by it because the cone is enormous and it starts about halfway into his body. So always try and be behind him. If you can, run away from the boss. That's the best thing that I've found, is if you absolutely have to, run away from the boss. Because again, staying alive, way more important than, doing ridiculous
Especially on
numbers.
this fight, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I do think we kind of glazed over earlier is the clipping from certain of the abilities during this fight. Certain abilities like the Falling Ash, the Toxic Storm, which is the purple storms that spawn, they're going to clip into the ground. And one of the annoying things from Toxic Storm is that it actually moves while it's spawned. So it moves towards a random player target. So you may not realize that they're actually coming closer to you, but they will slowly be moving to you. And if you have that debuff that Daga mentioned just a while ago, the Toxic Mist, if that's at the low end where it's its strongest, if you get hit by a Toxic Storm or something like that, when that's on you, it's essentially just going to one-shot you. So,
Yep. I did not know they move.
oh yeah, that's what makes them so bloody annoying for range.
I did not know that.
They will slowly creep around, and since they clip so heavily into the ground, they're really hard to tell sometimes where they're actually at. Alright, I think that pretty much covers that boss, so let's hop into our open discussion. Now, this week, we're going to be doing we're going to be starting a 4-part segment that's going to be looking at meters and logs. So this week, we're actually going to be looking at meters and logs for healers. And essentially what we're going to do is just kind of discuss what we see as being issues and stuff like that for healing meters, and kind of give you our background with using them and how we generally use the logs for these different classes and stuff to either figure out how somebody's doing or figure out if somebody's worth recruiting in or so on and so forth. So I will start us out with healing meters, because I think that's probably the most common one that people run into.
So it's the most contested too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it's the one that's hardest to figure out, to kind of divine information from.
Exactly. Alright, so with meters, you're going to kind of run into 3 different things. The most current problem right now with the meter systems being Recount and SCADA, the most current issue with them right now that everyone's seeing is that priests, particularly disciplined priests and paladins, their bubbles always get reacted first. You always see them first on the meters, so that's never going to be overhealing. So classes generally find an issue with this being throughput classes. So you have your druids, your shamans, your monks, who are all about throughput and keeping people alive, whereas paladins and priests are about bubbling. So there's always going to be that kind of differential between bubbles and barriers and such over actual taken damage that's been healed. So preventative damage is always going to show up as being higher. So, Maticus, what are your thoughts on how to actually look over a healing meter and kind of get a good idea of what's going on?
I think that the very first thing you should do, even before looking at logs, is like have an understanding of the fight that you're doing first. Know where all the damage is coming from. Look at all those different sources. Figure out things like positioning or whatever, and then figure out what role each healer has. You know, do you have one or two healers working on the tanks? Or do you have a couple of other healers working on specific players on the raid or on the melee or whatever? Like, once you isolate the roles, once you know who's doing what, that's when you can get a better and more, I guess, precise handle on what the different healers are doing and how much they're actually contributing overall to the fight. So that's the very, very first thing you should be looking at, no matter what.
Okay, now, Dagum, I know you don't do any healing. In fact, I believe in your words, paladins don't have a holy spec.
They don't. They don't. I was really sad when they nerfed Battle Healer for prop paladins, because that was the only healing I was ever doing if it wasn't self-healing. You know, some of the biggest things that you can look at, and this is coming from kind of a DPS standpoint, but even on the same token, you can kind of look at it this way from a healing perspective, is like Maticus mentioned, knowing the fight. And because you know the fight, where the sources of damage are coming from, what kind of damage is coming in, you can look at what spells are being used, right?
Yeah.
So you can see like how efficient they're being by using particular spells. So like if there's a lot of AoE damage, are they using their AoE healing? And then keep in mind too, were they told to do tank only healing,
right?
And then maybe spot heal the raid?
Or they assign those specific groups. Right,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking, you got to kind of keep the whole picture in mind. That's why it's harder for a healer to divine information here. But these are just kind of the tips to point you in the right direction. And then if you're going to look at the spells that are cast, understand the class that you're looking at inside and out.
Oh.
And that means you have to look up the class. You have to. So if you're going to make a judgment like that, it ends up being a lot of work, but you really have to look at it and say, all right, these are the spells you should be using. Now, what are you actually using? And if those match up, yay, good. If not, then you may want to sit down and be like, hey, why weren't you using this? Is there a particular reason you were using this? Just ask them. Don't necessarily be confrontational with it, but just ask them, because maybe they have a good reason. They were there, they were playing the class, and trust your raiders. I mean, as a general rule, they know what they're doing.
I don't know. You mean I can't play all 10 counts?
That has happened, actually. There was a guy that played 10 characters, different classes, and cleared Karazhan on his own. At level,
I believe
by the way.
It's pretty good.
All right, now something that both of these guys mentioned is kind of understanding the class and the mechanics of the fight that you're actually looking at. Now, one thing, because I healed as a Restoration Druid for a long, long time, and I'm still healing on my Resto Shaman now. I've also healed on a Holy Paladin. I've got a high-level Priest and Monk right now that I'm working on getting maxed out, but like I've healed on a lot of classes, and nothing bothers me more than having somebody looking at logs or something like that and being like, oh look, this druid is doing 70% overhealing. I wonder what he's doing wrong. And then you look at the other classes he's healing with, and it's like a disciplined priest and a paladin. And there's so much bubbles going out that you just don't have the ability to heal much. So a lot of your heals are going to be overhealing. So, Maticus, I know you played a priest. You're disciplined right now, are you not?
Yes, I've played all three specs at some point or other in this tier, though.
Yeah. Now, so you essentially, as a discipline priest, you don't run into a lot of overhealing.
No, it's very. It's fairly minimal because the shields, obviously, like you mentioned, those tick off like first.
Yeah. So right off the bat, I hate you for playing a discipline priest.
I know. I've tried playing Holy. I really tried to make Holy work. This is a whole separate topic entirely, but Holy just doesn't do it for the class right now in this tier, sadly.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Despite what your readers say, it needs work.
Unfortunately, Holy doesn't have the backing behind it right now with its.
No.
You need so much spirit and haste to make it worthwhile running.
I've tried
Ridiculous.
so much. Yeah, it just didn't work out. But yeah, so right now that's why I switched back to discipline for the time being.
I'd just like to say, as somebody that tanked for years and years, I love you as a discipline priest. Please play it more. I just want you to know that. Effective health. Give me effective health. Yes.
See, but discipline isn't really doing that all that much for tanks anymore. Essentially, what discipline is doing
We're still
now
doing
is
stuff for tanks, just not as much. We were normalized.
yeah, they were normalized
Yeah.
to be a little bit more overall raid healing with
Yes.
the addition of atonement healing. So now it's just more of added DPS with passive healing on top of it that is triggered by bubbles and stuff like that. So
No matter what you say, bubbles still equate to more effective health. No matter what
yeah,
you say,
you're
so
right.
as a tank,
You're
I
right.
love it.
Mm-hmm.
Give me more.
But other classes do that as well now. You have shamans that give ancestral healing.
Yeah, it's true.
Ancestral vigor, sorry. I mean, essentially, druids having iron bark on a 30-second cooldown.
Yep.
Or a 1 minute cooldown. Is it 1 minute or 30 seconds? I can't remember.
It's a minute.
Yeah, 1 minute cooldown. It's a pretty substantial defensive for the tanks all the time,
okay.
right? So.
Disc priest best class NA.
All right, so I think we're all kind of in agreement that when you're looking at healing meters, trying to get an idea of what the class is actually doing is more important than what the meters say.
That's not to say it's not important though.
Yeah, right.
You got
exactly.
someone doing 0 healing or like 100 or like 10,000 healing. That's a problem.
Okay,
Right.
So,
within
like,
reason.
Yeah, of course, within reason, absolutely. But like, I keep seeing and hearing this camp going, "Oh, healing meters don't matter as long as people are doing something." Yes, you're right. You're technically right. But at the end of the day, though, that's not an excuse for a healer to not heal. Okay?
Yeah.
You have to heal. There still have to be numbers on there. Yes, okay, there could be a healer who is substantially lower than someone else. Understandable, acceptable, okay? But you also got to look at what they're doing. But at the same time, if I'm doing what you're doing, we're the same gear level, and you clearly destroy me in, like, significantly, like 90% to 10 or 80 to 20 or whatever, that's a problem that's going to be looked at. So where that line is, where that breaking point is, that's up to the raid group and the raid leader to find out, okay, this is a problem. It's not just an explanation of assignments or playstyle or any of that stuff anymore. Someone here is being lazy, like, and it's up to you to find out like what that line is. And
Well,
I've had
and
this I've had this argument in the past. So like,
Yeah.
there's a line for sure.
One other thing to keep in mind too, it may not even be something you normally look at. If everybody's within that line,
Yeah,
healing meters really shouldn't even be looked at unless people are dying.
correct.
Yeah,
Like,
but
as
to be-
soon as
wait,
people are
wait,
dying,
wait.
or like
Wait.
healers
When
are
during
running
progression are people not dying?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like
Like,
if people aren't dying, no one should be looking at healing meters at all.
If
Like
people aren't
arms,
dying,
no.
the only thing that's dying is bosses, and quite frankly,
all right.
what do meters matter at that point, right? People
all
are
right,
going
all
to
right.
die. The entire point is understanding why they're dying.
I'm just
Well,
saying
that's a
there's-
death thing that's coming later, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but yeah, that's coming in the coming episode. But
Right. So we'll
This-
discuss that later.
Yeah, I was just kind of making the point that meters don't matter because and you're kind of making the point for me a little. Meters don't matter unless there's a problem. So just make sure that while we're talking about meters, while we're stressing meters are important as an analytical tool, everybody put your EPing away. All right?
yeah,
No one cares about meters.
It's got to be looked at as a diagnostics kind
Yep.
of a thing with anything else. Actually,
It's-
here's a good
it's
here's
a
a good
tool.
pointer. If you're working on something and you want to kind of see, like World of Logs is great because it's like public. Many logs are public from a lot of various guilds at different stages of progression. So find a guild that's on the same level as you are and look at their logs and compare it to yours and kind of see, how that is. If the spread from first to whatever is like equal or similar, then at least you know you're doing something right. If they're doing something completely out of whack, the problem could be theirs, or maybe you're doing something not as efficient, But just like I like to look at a couple of other guilds. I bookmark a few of them, and I just keep them around just to kind of as a reference to kind of to benchmark where my raiders are at compared to others, and just kind of see if what we're doing is similar or if it's something that needs to be looked at closer.
Now,
great for spell usages too.
Speaking of sites like World of Logs and the new one, Warcraft Logs, and hopefully soon Aspis for Robot has their logging system up because I'm kind of excited to see what they've got coming. Speaking of those sites, what are your guys' thoughts on healer rankings? I know that during a progression kill, one of my paladin healer for my 10-man ranked, and I tore a strip off my raid team because there was no reason he should have ranked.
Anyone ranking, like, truth be told, I don't want any healer ranking.
If a healer is ranking, in my opinion, you are not doing the encounter properly, and that's just.
If a healer is ranking, there's 5 other people that are slacking.
Yeah, or you're under-healing it, or you're... Exactly.
Exactly. I was just going to say, the only people that rank are... If you're a healer, the only people that rank are one of two things. Other people aren't doing their job, or you're using less healers than other people are.
I'll give you a perfect example.
Option C. One healer alive at 25% the rest of the way.
That is true. Yeah, that is true.
That's option
fair enough.
If one healer manages to keep up the raid through the last X amount of time,
at that point,
so be it.
You just like
yeah, right. Slow clap.
Yeah. No, fast clap. Screw that.
Now, Maticus, you said during your last week, you guys just are working on Malkrok, or you just got Malkrok?
We took down Malkrok this past Tuesday.
Okay.
So we just got him down.
How many healers did you use for that?
We used 1, 2, 5. Yeah, 5 because there was a high DPS check, so we used 5.
Okay, so 5 healers, and did you solo tank the Blood Rage?
We don't have a monk.
You guys don't have a monk? Do you guys have a death knight?
We had our bear tank and a paladin.
Well, bear tank can't do it without side cooldowns, but that's not the point.
Yeah. But we 2-tanked it.
So you 2-tanked it, and with using the solo tank method on the Blood Rage, essentially healers, if you're using that method where you aren't having everybody stack up for Blood Rage, you run into an issue with there not being enough damage going out on that fight to actually rank. So what happens is raid teams on that fight figure out ways to take extra damage in order for their healers to rank. So they'll run through extra orbs on heroic to take extra damage, and they'll stand in stuff that they're not supposed to, or not stand in the purple puddles on the ground.
Which is, like, understandable. I mean, I can see why they want to do that. But, like, we were just working on getting it down, so we weren't thinking about it. So that's why we didn't think it properly.
Yeah.
But I guess if you farmed it enough times, you're kind of bored of it. I understand that.
Now, you said you did it with 5 healers, which kind of surprises me, because Let
me double check. Hang on. I'm going to pull my logs right now, because my memory is hazy here. 1, 2, 5, 6. Sorry, I was wrong. It was actually 6.
It was 6 healers, okay.
Yeah,
so that's 6 healers, and I think my 25-man right now is running 4 healers on that fight.
Mm-hmm.
For the sake of saying, screw it, let's try and get people ranks on some of our farm stuff.
Right.
So when you're looking at things like top parses and stuff like that, don't even bother looking at healer ranking, because 99% of it is set up prior to the fact of when you're actually killing the boss.
A lot of it's cheese.
A lot of it is just cheese. So if you're looking at your healers saying, oh, they're this close to the ranking limit or something like that, it doesn't bloody matter.
Right. So a lot of these guys have, like, super awesome gear too, or like way higher than everyone else, and they're deliberately setting the fight up in such a way to get that rank.
It's not even that. It's having a bear druid take the glyph that increases their healing healing taken by 30%, and
really?
then just
the glyph.
Yeah, there's a glyph that does that, and then you just have them stand in crap and single heal them the entire fight.
Awesome.
Like, there's ways that you can cheese healing meters so much that it's not worth looking at them in parses for ranking. And that is what I feel is my current issue with the healer logs that are out there right now.
Yep.
Do you guys have anything to add, or are we good to wrap up?
I'll have lots of things to add when we talk about DPS logs.
All right, yeah, I think DPS logs will be next week, followed by tank logs, and then followed by on the last week we're going to be talking about, or on the fourth episode we're going to be taking a look at how to effectively analyze death logs and understanding wipes.
Yep.
But that's going to be it for this week. We won't be here next week because of Valentine's Day. We will be returning the week after. So that's going to be on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific on the 21st, I believe. What's that?
Nazgrim, right?
Yeah, well, we're going to be taking a look at General Nazgrim. I think. Yeah, that's after Dark Shaman, isn't it? Yeah. Alright,
yes.
So thank you for listening to the Raid Mechanics. Visit blizzpro.tv for all future episodes, as well as other shows like The Edge, The Spotlight, Twizcast, and BlizzPro Weekly. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can follow us on Twitter at Raid Mechanics. I am LukianKT on Twitter. Maticus is at Maticus. Dagum is at Salty Dagum. And you can email any comments or questions or suggestions for raid discussion topics to theraidmechanics@gmail.com. That's going to be it for this week, everybody. We'll be back next week to break down, or I guess 2 weeks from now, to break down the General Nazgrim encounter in Siege of Orgrimmar. And hopefully get to some of your emails, which we haven't been getting any, so I'm all confused, because it's like, we want to talk about your guys' stuff. Give us your issues. We want to help you. Help us help you. Send us in emails, guys. Alright, that's going to be it for the show this week, and thanks for tuning in. Bye, everybody.